Hello and welcome to Settling Up with Go Cardless,
where we settle the score with payment leaders,
get their honest opinions, their hot takes, and no chargebacks.
Resolutely declined. It goes against the entire spirit of open banking. I think what I continue to be a great believer in open banking, it's just fundamentally a good idea. It's a profound simplification of payment exchanges.
You can't have a podcast without mentioning AI at the moment.
I've said it now.
Yeah, it's out there now.
I view the potential of open banking as way more than just another logo on a checkout and a set of payment methods as well. Right? What got us here, let's remember, and this is an unpopular opinion, but is regulation.
My guest today is Oli Shaw Latimer. Oli, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Ellie. It's great to be here. My name's Oli. I have a 15-year or so background in payments. Payments have really been the common thread in my career. And through that time, through the medium of payments, we've been able to affect all sorts of exciting, really critical strategic changes in a number of the companies I work for. And that's what really gets me out in the morning, that ability for payments to transform businesses.
Well, look, it's been nearly 8 years since open banking was introduced in the UK, and there are debates about whether it's taken off enough and as quickly as the industry had expected. So open banking payment volumes topped 31 million in March this year, showing 40% year-on-year growth. That's according to official statistics from Open Banking Limited. It's impressive growth, but when you consider that card transactions are at 2.6 billion per month, it's clear that there's a way to go before open banking payments hit the mainstream. So today we're going to deep dive into the progress of open banking so far, the exciting open banking developments that are coming, and why the open banking dream certainly is not dead. So to kick things off and to break the ice, we're going to play our very first game of the podcast, which is Approved Pending Declined. It's our payments version of Yay or Nay. So I'm going to give you a series of industry terms or ideas, Oli, and then you have to say whether you give it one of the following. It's approved, it's got the green light, full steam ahead, it's a great idea. If it's pending, then it's kind of got the amber light, it's promising, it's not quite there yet, and obviously declined, red light, it's a terrible idea. No, it's not going ahead. So let's start with open banking as a term. Approved, pending, or declined?
Straight in. Open banking approved from my perspective. I think it highlights the fact that it's what we're doing is using a current existing network and opening it up kind of implicitly. And I also like the use of the term banking because it's not only restricted to payments. There's obviously a whole AIS model that you can leverage as well. So there's a suite of capabilities there that covers banking. So the term open banking approved from my perspective.
Okay, green light then. Yeah. Great. Next up then, the digital pound. So a digital form of cash backed by the Bank of England. Oli, in your view, approved, pending or declined?
Very much approved from my perspective. Not an original idea here, but that's where money's going. It's been going that way for decades, increasingly digital, so to speak. I think this is just the next natural evolution of it.
And finally then, banks charging PSPs for open banking access. Approved, pending or declined?
Resolutely declined. It goes against the entire principle, spirit of open banking, which, again, as I said, the clue's in the name, right? Mm-hmm. We have infrastructure. We want to open it up for the benefit of the entire ecosystem. So putting in walls, tariffs of this type really goes against, in my opinion, the culture that open banking, of competition that open banking is looking to instill.
Well, let's do a few personal ones now, if you don't mind. So let's get your thoughts on people leaving voicemails. Approved, pending or declined?
Pending. I think the only person who still does that is my dad, who's still struggling with mobile phones, so I forgive him. Pending. I suppose if you're of a certain generation, it works.
Parents allowed, no one else. Yeah, okay. What about getting to the airport as late as possible? Approved, pending, or declined?
I'm going to have to decline that. After having approved it for a number of years, I cannot get to an airport late now. I'm showing my age, but I've missed too many flights.
Oh, okay.
Definitely.
It's gone badly wrong for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Lesson learned.
Cutting it short doesn't work.
And surprise birthday parties, approved, pending, or declined in your view?
I decline. I like surprises. But I prefer a close set of friends that I can expect, as opposed to massive, big surprise birthday parties.
And finally then, spicy food, approved, pending or declined?
Approved all the way. Yeah, I love spicy food, curries in particular.
Well, look, let's get stuck into the topic at hand and do a bit of a deep dive. And Oli, I mentioned at the top, but you've worked with some huge brands that all our listeners will probably recognise. So Vodafone among them, Disney, EA Games, and now you've got your role at JustGiving and Blackboard. So you're obviously a strong believer in the power of payments tech to transform businesses. That's something I also mentioned in the intro, but I'm keen to find out, what can payments innovation bring to businesses and their consumers and customers?
I am a great believer in the transformational power of payments, not because I'm a natural believer, because I've seen it in action. If you look at the journey of JustGiving as a product, as a brand, as a platform in the last 30 years of its existence, all the big innovation that's kicked in the last 10 years has come largely from payments, the transactional side. We spearheaded a lot of innovation. JustGiving operates in a sector that, has to be said, isn't known for being the fastest moving when it comes to tech. And so we have that role as acting as a bit like the R&D sector, department of the sector. And so a lot of innovation that you see on JustGiving starts with payments. I would never reduce the gesture of giving online to just a mere transaction, but it is very mission critical to what we do. And it's also revolutionized, not just JustGiving actually, but that whole sector's business model. And we've moved to these voluntary tipping monetization strategies for platforms like JustGiving, which really rebalance quite a lot of the value from the donor into the sector. So that's all things that have come from the payments department, FinTech, and which we're very proud of. But I mean, it's clear that payments has been at the heart of all the major innovations from a revenue, business model perspective, and just pure tech as well. Introduction of crypto payments, open banking. Payments is a huge driver of change in all the companies I've worked at.
And in the time that you've been, we said you had sort of 15 years working in payments or just over. I mean, you must have seen a huge amount of change just in that period alone.
Absolutely.
So what does the landscape look like now?
Which is what makes payments, of course, so damn interesting as an area. I mean, when I say 15 years, I mean, my first experience of payments was, Crazy Frog, pre-SMS, right? It's a long time ago. And so I've followed the evolutions of FinTech really throughout my career as well. I worked at acquirers. I worked for big gaming merchants like EA, plugging in their in-app payments, acquirers, and now online fundraising. But really, as I said, payments has been a common thread of all of that. And yeah, I have seen huge changes, and I'm particularly excited about some of the changes that we're on the cusp of now. In the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, well, I want to ask you about those actually. I mean, it's all very well looking back, but as you say, there's some things we're on the cusp of. So what are some of the emerging payment trends that you are most excited about over the next, say, 3 to 5 years?
Well, obviously, subject to hand, open banking in general as a framework, and I encompass all of its use cases. So, payment initiation obviously is one of them, but a lot of the account initiation, account information initiation stuff as well. I think there's a huge amount of potential there. I think what I continue to be a great believer in open banking is it's just fundamentally a good idea. It's a profound simplification of payment exchanges. And it's also got the tech behind it and the regulatory support to be successful. So I am actually a huge believer in it. In the UK, in other markets where it's taking off, and what I find also interesting there is it's taking off in markets that are very mature from a payments perspective, as well as markets that aren't so much. So that's definitely one trend. I think the other one is, we touched upon the digitalization of money. That is just only going to continue. And anything that's blockchain driven really is obviously another key pattern and area of evolution that I find fascinating. And then I couldn't really get away without mentioning AI, right? Because AI is going to be another, transcendental technology changing, obviously not just the payment sector, but all sectors. But I think in payments, there's some really exciting applications there as well.
Yeah, you can't have a podcast without mentioning AI at the moment.
So we've said it now.
Yeah, it's out there now.
It's good. All right, cool.
Well, great. I think, like you say, there's some really exciting trends there. And we're definitely going to dive deeper into some of those.
Excellent.
So I'm interested to know, for charities in particular, why is it so crucial to get that collecting of donations right?
Yeah, I mean, collecting funds is becoming more and more complex. Obviously, we're becoming more and more cashless, and it's an expectation that you're at least online. Organizations, non-profit organizations, have had to keep up with that.
Yeah.
And especially if you're on the smaller end and you've got lower budgets, that can sometimes be quite challenging. So again, JustGiving here has a role coming in, not just as an innovation hub for the sector, but also sharing insights, as in how did this go? We launched, crypto, we launched recurrent giving, etc. How did those things go? How were they received? And making some of that technology available via our platform as well, via APIs, etc. Right. So we have a role to play here in helping the sector, I suppose, keep up with what is, a fast-moving area of fintech payments. It moves quickly because it's not optional to keep up, right? As consumer behaviours evolve, ways of giving evolve, the expectations from the consumers of where they are getting their prompts to donate are getting more and more complicated and embedded into their daily lives. And for that, you need some technology in the background, and that's where we come in.
And I guess the other aspect of it is that these are people who are giving their money, right? And they're expecting it to go to a charity, but they're kind of giving it in goodwill. So that must be a very important
Absolutely. So the JustGiving brand, as nebulous and elusive as that is, that's a very real thing. When you're donating on JustGiving, there is that brand trust. We're a household name. And so you trust correctly that your funds are going to be processed in the most efficient, cheapest, safest possible way, and also passed on to where they need to go at the quickest available opportunity.
So I know JustGiving has been using open banking for a while now to collect one-off donations. Can you tell us a little bit about what that's been like, and I suppose what the impact has been really for JustGiving and the charities that you work with?
Yeah, so we were, I believe we're the first major merchant online to pick up PISP, so payment initiation, over open banking. And like any innovators, you also have to take the rough with the smooth at the beginning of a technology. So, we had some challenges at the beginning, particularly around refunds, which, had not been particularly well thought through. I think it's fair to say at the inception of open banking. But overall, we've had a very positive experience. What we've learned from open banking is how it's used on the platform. First of all, it's been growing in at least single digits of growth, when you compare it to our overall share of wallet every year. So which I consider to be, very encouraging. So, when I hear news of the demise of open banking, I can only say, well, to ours, it looks like that's fairly premature as a statement, because it is actively growing. It's also been really interesting to see what donor behaviours it respond to open banking the best, and it tends to be people, surprisingly, of a slightly older age, who are making slightly higher amount donations, including some very high profile folks. And they're really looking at the security that goes around open banking and the instantness of their transfer. And that's what leads them to open banking primarily. If I'm donating, £10,000, £12,000, I want that bank grade security reassurance. It's just a transfer from my bank to another bank, without having to share card details, etc. So that's where we've seen really the use case work super well for us. There is a pounds and pences argument as well, which is, fact remains that processing an open banking transaction costs us a fraction of an average card transaction, right? So as a merchant, that's inescapable as well.
It's interesting there you're seeing maybe older users actually, and is that something that surprised you at the time? I mean, I guess as you say, you're talking about some quite high value transactions, so maybe we shouldn't be too surprised by that. But
yeah. I wasn't necessarily expecting the somewhat older cohort of our consumers to pick up new technology. I'll leave it at that. But it's really, I think, more a translation of the size of the gift that you're making. So you're richer, you tend to be on the older side. Yeah. And that's where people will go towards open banking more.
Yeah, it's interesting. And maybe we shouldn't jump to conclusions about certain generations not adopting tech as fast as others, actually.
Exactly. There's an aspect of speed as well, which is we have a crowdfunding product where you're fundraising for individuals, and you tend to have like more urgency, I'd say, on the delivery of the funds. We have another kind of tentpole of behaviour around open banking there, where there is an understanding that open banking funds actually travel to the cause quicker.
Well, let's talk about a recent article that was published in the Financial Times with the headline, "Why Britain's FinTech Dream is Dead." And it pointed to a slower than first expected development of open banking as the reason for the UK falling behind when it comes to new payments technology. So firstly, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, as I said, it doesn't match my experience of open banking at all as a merchant. Dare I say, as one of the leading merchants in the UK. We've seen adoption rise fairly consistently since we've adopted, which is now late 2019. So that's been a consistent ramp up since then. I think there is real value delivered, not just to our customers, charities and non-profits, because they get cheaper processing, quite simply. But there is also value delivered onto the donor, the consumer side as well. It doesn't suit necessarily or fit perfectly every use case. That's not the point. That's why we have, a selection of payment methods to offer folks. But it certainly has its place in our payments quiver, so to speak, and we're seeing usage increase, and we love it as a merchant because it's got some clear upside for us as well. So it's just not my experience of adopting it or seeing it grow.
You mentioned the numbers there, kind of going in the right direction, which is great. But do you think the current rate of open banking development, is it disappointing, or do you think there were certain parts of the industry and the ecosystem that were maybe being a bit too bullish?
I think it's disappointing in the sense that I think some of the trends that were previously described were unreasonable and unrealistic. It's a key payment and payment behaviour change. Hark back to other changes like this, contactless. It was around for years. Until people really properly started using it. Key adoptions like the London Underground were really behind that. And now it's second nature. We couldn't imagine a world without contactless, right? But that curve of adoption to reach that critical point of adoption took years. I think open banking is on a similar journey. The benefits to the merchant ecosystem and the consumers is, to me, clear. I think you should stand by a good idea, and it is a good idea fundamentally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting you point out about the rate of adoption of contactless. It did take a while. We probably forget that now as consumers who use it every day, right?
Yeah.
And actually, it's the same with open banking payments. It's going to take time for people to use it and become familiar with it. Exactly. Does it require a kind of killer use case, a bit like the TfL?
Yes, I think so. But we are getting killer use cases through. They are taking time to develop. I think another hurdle that I'll put forward modestly is that what got us here, let's remember, and this is an unpopular opinion, is regulation, right? We have a unique banking landscape in the UK that's 5-6 big banks mostly, and a fairly well understood, mature banking interface system between those banks, and a regulator that came on top of that to try and to seek to introduce some competitivity into the market. So I think I can't now sit here 10 years down the line and complain that some of the regulation isn't catching up because we're here because of regulation. But I do think that there are still some barriers to full adoption that regulation can help remove.
And I guess it's worth remembering that we are only 8 years into open banking officially being implemented in the UK, which actually, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that long, is it?
Exactly. In payments terms, it's yesterday.
I'm wondering whether you think there's a consumer awareness issue and user awareness issue actually around open banking payments. People get to a checkout and there's all this choice now, which is something that consumers generally want. But I guess if they don't know what open banking is, they've probably certainly not heard that term, right? What are your thoughts around that?
No, absolutely. So consumer education has been, one of the key challenges to adoption. No surprises from day one. It's relatively challenging in a checkout to explain what's going to happen when you click confirm payment. When you've been used to a card, which gives you some kind of whirring screen and then a completed, right? That you're going to get redirected. However, we've had, loads of payment methods that have been developed in the last few years. I'm thinking of PayPal, etc., that rely on the redirection. I think for us, the key challenge has been to explain that we're not taking money off your credit card. It has nothing to do with a credit card. It's all a banking transfer. Because I think at the beginning, I think we're fine now, but at the beginning there was that like a cognitive dissonance with consumers that have been used to credit card experiences, and you're actually sending them straight to their bank, which if they're not fully expecting, can create some angst there. But what we've also found, as I said, is as the understanding of open banking settles in, so to speak, we've seen that it's intentionally used for specific use cases. As I mentioned before, when you're making a big transaction, I think it's particularly well suited to that. I pay my taxes, through open banking. HMRC picking it up and supporting it is, I think, one of those key killer use cases that will accelerate it on the way.
Yeah, I agree. That was a really big moment, actually, I think, with the adoption by HMRC. And just on your point there about obviously some of the payment options at checkout, like PayPal, I guess they have their own branding. Is that kind of an issue for open banking payments, do you think?
No, I mean, I view the potential of open banking as way more than just another logo on a checkout and a set of payment methods as well, right? VRP is coming later this year, which is, I'm very much looking forward, because that's been one of the key challenges we've got, particularly in the fundraising space, for recurrent gifts and scheduled payments, which need a lot of improvement. And then there's the whole world of AIS, which again we're looking to focus on in the next couple of years because of KYC needs, right? So again, some of the products we run, we need to verify not just your identity, but you're associated to a bank account that's in good standing, etc. And there's really only one tech out there that lets us do that. So again, speaking personally as JustGiving as a merchant, we have a number of very key use cases that we're looking to the open banking infrastructure to in the next couple of years. And I only see our usage increasing.
Okay, so at present, open banking offers the greatest opportunity for businesses that collect one-off transactions, where it's much cheaper than the card networks, as you've alluded to already, and it's also more efficient than some of the alternatives, certainly. You mentioned variable recurring payments, VRPs, so let's get into that, because they're set to change this by allowing businesses to collect recurring payments of differing value via open banking. Now, at the moment, they're only available for sweeping use cases, so that's between two accounts owned by the same person. It's often called me-to-me, isn't it? Yep. That use case. And it's mainly within the financial services sector at the moment as well. So I think we're looking at a rollout date for commercial VRPs of later this year. There's still quite a bit of work, isn't there, to be done to sort of get us there. What will a full commercial rollout of VRPs mean for open banking adoption and acceleration, Ollie?
We're very excited about it for a couple of reasons. I think probably most folks will understand the criticality of repeat scheduled donations in the fundraising world. Because what's better than a donation? Well, a set of donations where I can keep in touch with the donor as I go along, right? So it's the Valhalla of any fundraising activity is to get donors to do repeat donations, right? So therefore, it's very critical for JustGiving as a fundraising platform. We've been, like everyone else, pretty much running on direct debits for decades, which is a great technology, but it also quite literally belongs to the 70s. And so it does come with its challenges. It's running on max rails. So it's, 3 to 5 days on the way in, 3 to 5 days on the way out to get the confirmation. There's a lack of flexibility to it. We're also seeing that when we talk to our consumers and talk to our donors, that investment of committing to, say, £50 a month every month until I say no is quite daunting. And there is a desire amongst the donating population to make that commitment, but to make it modular. So, some months I might want to donate 20, other months I might want to donate 80, depending on, what's going on. It's a space I've been watching for some time, and VRPs have really struggled to get market ready from my perspective. So as far as we're concerned, we're going to be running a pilot in Q4 with the help of Go Cardless, just to start exploring what the options are. for true VRP, not the sweeping method that you described. But I think, to your point, it does have quite a long way to go. But the prize at the end is worth it because I think we'll end up with a much more flexible, cheaper, more optimal way of mandating payments out of people's accounts.
Can you tell us a little bit then about how that's going to look when you do sort of work with Go Cardless? How are you kind of beginning that kind of pilot, I think you called it?
I mean, as I said, once it's reached a level of maturity as an offering, I think VRP is totally there to replace direct debits, right? But it's going to be a journey of some length. We already, as I said, process, and one of the reasons we selected Go Cardless as a provider was because they've got 1 foot in each world of, still the direct debit side, still the open banking side. So I think for me, the most successful rollout of VRP is going to be one where it genuinely and entirely replaces our direct debit over time. That's success from my perspective.
Yeah, okay. So that's how you'll measure it. And well, look, it's great to hear about that. We'll look forward to seeing that kind of be rolled out later in the year and early into next year, I guess.
Yeah. As I said, we're doing it on specific banks, but that's more a limitation of where VRP is in the world versus what we'd like to do with it. I'd like VRP to be 3 years ahead of where it's at now and mass adopt it. I have no issues with that on the JustGiving side.
Where do you think it has, what has held it up, I suppose? You've talked about it being a long time coming, hasn't it, in a way?
Yeah, I think what's held it up is, again, that's the price you pay for regulation-led changes. Some of the banks didn't adopt open banking with the same level of enthusiasm as others. There was a regulatory tick box to tick, and I think some banks just did that. Other banks, I think, were more forward-thinking, understood the potential of it. So because, a usable market-driven VRP wasn't part of the original regulatory mandate, I think some banks, I'll just do the minimum and not cover this. But what we've ended up with is what I consider at the moment something that's not usable on the open banking side to replace direct debits, which is a great shame because essentially what it will deliver is direct debits on faster payments with a lot more modularity, so much more usable, consumer-friendly product.
Well, I guess watch this space then, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. But we've been watching it for some years and we'll continue to, but we're very excited about VRP as a development. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to play a very quick game of higher or lower. You may remember the original game show. Yeah. So I'm going to present you with a statistic. Then I'm going to ask you a question and you're going to tell me whether the answer to that is higher or lower than the first statistic I gave you. So let's start. We've got 40% of online purchases in the UK were made using a digital wallet in 2024. Is that higher or lower than the percentage of digital wallet e-commerce payments made globally in 2024?
I'm going to say lower because whilst I've been witnessing the rise of wallet transactions in the UK, I think there are other markets where wallets are a lot more leveraged than they are in Europe. And so I would say that the global average is probably higher than ours. Yeah,
you're right. It is lower. So 53% of e-commerce transactions were made via digital wallets globally in 2024. That's chunky percentage.
Yeah, meaty. Yeah. Nice.
So the second question in this higher or lower game. Now, QR code payments grew by 40% in 2024 with over 1 billion users globally.
Yep.
Is that higher or lower than the total number of transactions recorded on the blockchain since its inception?
Oof, that's tough. I'd say about the same, more or less.
On the basis that?
We have witnessed firsthand how QR code usage has exploded. It's still only pockets of use cases though, but multiplied by a great number of multiplying factors. So yeah, I think it's about, from a transaction perspective, probably kept pace with everything that's going on the blockchain more or less.
Yeah, I mean, essentially it is only slightly lower. So over 1.211 billion transactions have been recorded on the Bitcoin blockchain since its inception.
Right. All right. I got close then. Nice. Thank you.
It's a good fact. It's a good one to have for a pub quiz,
absolutely.
I think. So third question of higher or lower. BNY Mellon recently processed the largest instant payment in US history for $10 million following the transaction limit increase. So is that higher or lower than the combined value of HMRC tax payments made using open banking in the first weeks of January 2024?
Got to believe it's lower. Given the size of all our tax bills, I would say that there was sufficiently large adoption of the open banking option on HMRC's rails that it would have exceeded 10 million.
Yeah, you're right. It is lower. So over 1 million payments were made using open banking with a combined value of 3.5 billion.
There you go. Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
We owe the tax man a lot. I
Yeah,
guess.
there you go. That's how much tax we pay. Great, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Oli, for diving into those topics on the podcast for us. Commercial VRPs, the future of open banking. It's great to hear you be so positive about it all. As you say, the numbers are telling the story, right? Before we close the episode, though, I'd like to get some of your predictions on the sort of future of payments and the landscape. So I'm going to pose to you some future ideas or trends. I'd like you to tell me whether it's forecast or fiction, and then why.
Great.
So let's start with the first one is payments by biometrics.
I'll call that a forecast. I think, as I said, that trust chain on the blockchain is one of the most exciting things, developments of the technology that I can see. When those currencies are then backed, you get a lot less of that volatility you get with regular cryptocurrency. So I'm a firm believer in those. I think there's again a lot more work to do to set them up. But I can see those becoming increasingly mainstream over time, yeah.
And the next one is central bank digital currency. So CBDCs go mainstream in the next 10 years. Forecast or fiction?
I'm going to call that forecast as well. I think, again, I'm very excited about the blockchain technology in general and the trust exchanges that happens on it. I think if we can combine that with some fiat bank backing, it will remove a lot of the volatility that is preventing some of the adoption currently. So I'm a big believer in that, yeah.
Okay, and then finally, VRPs and open banking replace direct debit. Forecast or fiction?
Forecast. Biggest question for me is when. That I can't predict. I would like to think in the next 5 years, but who knows?
Well, we'll hold you to it, obviously.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much, Oli. Thanks for coming on the podcast to settle things.
Pleasure, thank you.
And thanks very much for those of you listening or watching the podcast. You can look out for all of our new episodes on Spotify and also on YouTube. Until next time, I hope that settles things.